He had $14 billion, 5 houses, a private jet, staff who anticipated his every need. And he had always said he didn't want a family, not a wife, not children, not the noise and the mess and the complication of other people needing things from him. He had said it so many times he had stopped questioning it. Then on a Tuesday morning, someone knocked on his door. A woman, late 20s, rain-soaked coat, tired eyes that had clearly not given up yet. And behind her, 3 children, the oldest maybe 8, the youngest barely walking, all 3 holding each other in the rain. She looked at him and said, "I heard you needed a housekeeper. I need the work. My children are well behaved. You won't even know we're here." He had turned away hundreds of people without a second thought. He didn't turn her away. He still doesn't know why, but his house has never been the same since. Nathan Cole did not answer his own door. He had a housekeeper for that, or had had one, until Mrs. Fleming had retired 3 weeks ago, after 11 years of service, citing her knees and her grandson's arrival in a city 4 hours away, both of which Nathan had accepted as reasonable grounds, without mentioning that he would have preferred she stayed. He had not replaced her yet. He was, in fact, standing in his own kitchen, making his own coffee for the 3rd morning in a row, a task that should have been simple and that he had discovered required more attention than he had been giving it. Given that the first 2 attempts had produced something that tasted like ambition and smelled like regret when the knock came. 3 beats even. The knock of someone who had decided to knock and was not going to second-guess the decision. He set down the coffee and went to the door. The woman on his doorstep was not what he expected, which was nothing, since he had not been expecting anyone. She was perhaps 28 or 29, with dark hair darkened further by the rain that had been falling since 6 that morning, and a coat that had been good quality once, and now showed the particular wear of something that had been looked after carefully for longer than it was designed to last. She was looking at him with the expression of someone who had prepared what they were going to say, and was now delivering it with the controlled composure of a person for whom composure was a discipline rather than a default. Cole, she said. My name is Sarah Reeves. I heard through Mrs. Fleming that you're looking for a housekeeper. I'd like to be considered for the position. He looked at her, then he looked past her. Three children stood on the path behind her, arranged in descending order of height, with the unconscious precision of children who had learned to occupy space carefully. The oldest was a boy of perhaps 8, with his mother's dark hair and an expression of watchful calm that was too old for his face. The middle child was a girl, 6 or 7, holding her brother's hand and looking at Nathan with the direct curiosity of someone who had not yet learned to be cautious about it. The youngest was barely walking, a small boy, perhaps 2, standing with his feet wide apart and both hands gripping the back of his sister's coat. All 3 were wet. Nathan looked at the children. He looked at Sarah Reeves. "Mrs. Fleming told you I was looking," he said. "Yes," she said. "Mrs. Fleming retired 3 weeks ago." She mentioned that, Sarah said. She also mentioned that you hadn't replaced her yet, and that you made terrible coffee. He said nothing. "I make excellent coffee," she said. "You have 3 children," he said. "I do," she said. "They're well behaved. You won't know they're here." The youngest child chose this moment to sit down on the wet path with the complete decision of a 2-year-old who has decided that sitting is preferable to standing, regardless of the ground conditions. The girl picked him up without breaking her grip on her brother's hand. "That's Tom," Sarah said, without turning around. "He does that." "How does he?" "He sits down when he's thinking," she said. "He's very thoughtful for 2. Nathan looked at the 3 children in the rain. He looked at Sarah Reeves, at the composed, rain-soaked, entirely undeterred woman on his doorstep who had come with 3 children and a pitch, and the expression of someone who was not going to leave without an answer. He had turned away people for less reason than this. He stepped back from the door. "Come in," he said. Out of the rain, he made them tea, not because he was particularly hospitable. He was not, as a rule, particularly hospitable, but because the children were wet and because it was something to do with his hands while he processed the fact that his house, which had contained exactly 1 person for 3 years, now contained for additional people and a level of noise that he had not previously understood was possible from such a small surface area. Tom had stopped sitting and started walking, a purposeful, wide-legged circuit of the kitchen that suggested he was conducting an inspection. The girl, Emma, he had gathered from Sarah's quiet instruction to stop touching that. Emma was examining the contents of his refrigerator with the comprehensive attention of a scientist. The older boy, Daniel, was sitting at the kitchen table with the controlled stillness of someone who had learned to be quiet in new spaces and was watching Nathan with careful dark eyes. Sarah Reeves was sitting across from Daniel with her hands around her tea and her back straight, not with stiffness, but with the posture of a woman who had decided that how she held herself in this room mattered. "Tell me about your experience," Nathan said. She told him. "8 years of housekeeping to private households before her marriage. Then the years at home with the children. Then the year since her husband had died in which she had held 3 different part-time positions simultaneously to keep the rent paid until the landlord had sold the building, and the new owner had required vacant possession, and she had found herself 6 weeks ago. With 3 children and a storage unit and a room in a friend's house that was no longer available. After this weekend, she said all of it plainly. Not for sympathy, he understood that clearly. She was providing information the way you provide information in a job interview. Because it was relevant, and because withholding it would waste both their time. The children, he said, where would they be while you worked? Here, she said. The position I'm applying for is live-in. Mrs. Fleming mentioned the staff quarters, 2 rooms and a bathroom at the east end of the house. I'm not asking for more than that. Live-in, he said. Yes, she said. I understand if that's not. I haven't offered you the position, he said. I know, she said. I'm telling you what I'd need if you did. Tom completed his circuit of the kitchen and arrived at Nathan's feet and looked up at him with the comprehensive assessment of a 2-year-old. Then he held up both arms. Nathan looked at the arms. He wants to be picked up, Emma said helpfully from the refrigerator. I can see that, Nathan said. Tom continued to hold up his arms with the patient certainty of someone who understood that the correct response would arrive eventually. Nathan Cole, who had $14 billion and 5 houses, and had not held a child in his adult life, looked at the 2 raised arms. He picked Tom up. Tom patted his face once, with the flat palm of a child conducting a casual inspection, and then settled against his shoulder with the complete trust of someone who had decided the matter was resolved. Daniel, at the kitchen table, watched this with the expression of someone filing important information. Sarah Reeves looked at her tea. When can you start? Nathan said. The house changed. Not dramatically, not all at once. But in the way that spaces change when they are occupied by people who use them, rather than merely moving through them. Small things first. Drawings appeared on the refrigerator, Emma's, taped up with the particular care of a 6-year-old who understood that permission had not technically been granted, but had decided that the refrigerator was the correct location regardless. Shoes appeared in the hallway for small pairs, arranged with approximate neatness. The kitchen, which had been a room Nathan passed through twice a day, became a room that smelled of actual cooking at actual meal times. Tom's toys appeared on the living room floor. Nathan stepped on one at 6:30 on the second morning, a small plastic truck that produced a sound he had not been prepared for, and stood in the hallway, for a moment registering the existence of this new world. He did not ask for it to be removed. Daniel knocked on his study door on the Thursday morning of the first week. Nathan opened it. My mum says I'm not supposed to bother you, Daniel said. She's right, Nathan said. I know, Daniel said. I just wanted to say thank you for letting us stay. Nathan looked at the boy, at the too old expression and the careful eyes, and the 8-year-old who had learned to say thank you for things that children should not have to be grateful for. You're welcome, Nathan said. My dad died, Daniel said. Last year. I'm the man of the house now. You're 8, Nathan said. I know, Daniel said, with the tone of someone who was aware of the gap between the role and the qualification and had decided to close it by other means. But someone has to look after them. Nathan looked at him. Your mother is doing that, he said. She can't do everything, Daniel said. She tries. He went back to his breakfast. Nathan stood in the study doorway for a moment. Then he went back to work, but he thought about it for the rest of the day. About an 8-year-old who had decided he was the man of the house, and a mother who was trying to do everything. And 3 children in the rain on a Tuesday morning who had been holding onto each other. He noticed things about Sarah Reeves gradually. The way she ran the house, not as a service, but as a system. The kind built by someone who had thought carefully about what needed doing and in what order, and had made it efficient without making it feel mechanical. The kitchen was never empty at meal times. The house was never untidy. Things that needed fixing were fixed before he noticed they needed fixing. She did all of it without announcing it. He noticed the mornings most. She was always up before the children. He could hear, from his bedroom, the quiet sequence of her morning, the kitchen, the kettle, then the smaller sounds of 3 children, being organized into the day with the particular efficiency of a woman who had been doing it alone. For a year, Anne had refined the process to its essentials. She never asked him for anything. That was the thing he kept returning to. In 3 years of staff and assistants and people whose salaries depended on his satisfaction, he had grown accustomed to being asked things. Sarah Reeves did not ask. She managed. She solved. She appeared in doorways with information. The boiler needs a part. I found the supplier and disappeared before he could offer to handle it. He started appearing in the kitchen in the evenings, not for any reason he could have articulated. The kitchen was warm. The children were there. Emma doing homework with the focused intensity of someone who took the enterprise seriously. Daniel reading. Tom asleep in the corner chair with the boneless abandon of a child who could sleep anywhere. Sarah was cooking. You don't have to eat with us, she said, the first evening. I can bring something to your study. I'm fine here, he said. She looked at him for a moment. Then she set another place. They ate together. The children talked Emma about school, Daniel about a book, Tom about the plastic truck in a monologue that required no response. Sarah listened to all of it and responded to each in turn with the complete attention of a woman who was tired and did not let the tiredness show in how she listened. Nathan ate his food and said very little and thought about how long it had been since a room had felt like this. He found out on a Saturday, 6 weeks in. He came down early and found her at the kitchen table, not working, just sitting, with a cup of tea and a small photograph and the expression she never wore. When anyone else was in the room, she heard him on the stairs and the expression was gone before he reached the kitchen door. But he had seen it. "Sit down," he said. She looked at him. "Please," he said. She sat. He made tea. He had learned in 6 weeks to make it correctly, which Sarah had not commented on, but which Emma had announced at dinner one evening. With the enthusiasm of someone reporting a significant development, he set it in front of her. "Tell me about him," he said. She looked at the photograph on the table. "His name was James," she said. He was the kind of person who made every room better. Not loudly, just better." She turned the photograph. "He was a teacher." Secondary school, mathematics. He loved it. "What happened?" "An accident," she said. "On the way home from school, a driver who wasn't paying attention." She said it plainly, the way she said all difficult things, not without feeling, but with the feeling contained, managed, carried correctly. Tom was 18 months old. He never really knew his father. Nathan said nothing. "Daniel remembers everything," she said. "Emma remembers some things. Tom has photographs." She paused. "I've made sure of that. He'll know who his father was." "He will," Nathan said. "Daniel is making sure of that too." She looked at him. "He told me," Nathan said, "that he's the man of the house now." Something moved across her face, love and grief and a kind of exhausted tenderness. "He's been saying that since the funeral," she said. "I keep telling him he doesn't have to." "He knows that," Nathan said. "He does it anyway. Because he loves them," she said. "Yes," Nathan said. "He does." They sat in the early morning kitchen with their tea and the photograph of James Reeves on the table between them, and the house was quiet around them in the particular way of early Saturday mornings. And Nathan Cole, who had $14 billion and had always said he didn't want a family, sat in his kitchen and understood that something had been building in this house for 6 weeks that he had not planned for and could not, any longer, pretend he didn't notice. Tom called him Nate on a Wednesday, not because anyone had suggested it, not because anyone had discussed names or titles or what the children should call the man whose house they were living in. Tom called him Nate because Tom was 2 and had decided with the absolute authority of someone for whom decisions required no justification, that this was correct. "Nate," Tom said, holding up the plastic truck for inspection. "Yes," Nathan said, looking at the truck. "Nate," Tom said again, with satisfaction, as if confirming a hypothesis. Sarah appeared in the doorway. "Tom, his name is Mr. Cole." "It's fine," Nathan said. She looked at him. "It's fine," he said again. Tom had moved on to the serious business of pushing the truck across the floor. Emma called him Mr. Nathan the following week, a compromise she had apparently arrived at independently, which Nathan found accurate. Daniel continued to call him Mr. Cole for 3 more weeks, and then, on a Tuesday evening, called him Nathan once, apparently without noticing, and then looked at him with the expression of someone assessing whether this had been a mistake. Nathan did not react. Daniel did not correct himself. The children settled into the house the way children settle into spaces, gradually, completely, without the self-consciousness that adults brought to the same process. Tom's toys spread from the living room to the hallway. Emma's drawings multiplied on the refrigerator. Daniel's books began to appear on the shelves in the library, always returned to exactly the right place, always with a careful bookmark, but present, which was different from before. Nathan did not ask for any of it to be moved. He started leaving his study door open. Daniel asked it on a Sunday evening. They had been in the library, Daniel reading, Nathan working. The comfortable silence, they had arrived at over 8 weeks of occasional shared spaces. Tom was asleep upstairs. Emma had gone to bed. Sarah was in the kitchen. "Mr. Nathan," Daniel said, single quotes, "yes. Why don't you have a family?" Nathan looked at his document, then at Daniel. "I never wanted one," he said. Daniel considered this with the seriousness he brought to everything. "Why not?" "I thought." Nathan stopped. Started again. "I thought a family would require things I wasn't prepared to give." "Like what?" "Time," Nathan said. "Attention. Being present." "You're present now," Daniel said. Nathan looked at him. "You're here every evening," Daniel said. "You leave your door open. You ate with us 14 times this month." "I counted." "You counted," Nathan said. "I noticed things," Daniel said. "My dad said that was a good quality." Nathan was quiet for a moment. "Your father was right," he said. "He usually was," Daniel said. "About most things." He looked at his book. "You're different from before. From when we first came, am I?" "You smiled at breakfast yesterday," Daniel said. "Emma told Tom that you're getting better. She thinks you were sad before we came." "Emma is very observant," Nathan said. "She gets it from Mum," Daniel said. He turned a page. "We won't be here forever," he said. Mom says when she's saved enough, we'll find our own place. She doesn't want to. He paused. She said she doesn't want to impose. Nathan looked at the document in front of him. She's not imposing, he said. I know, Daniel said, but she worries about it. He turned another page. I think she likes it here. She hums when she's cooking now. She didn't used to. Nathan said nothing. Just so you know, Daniel said. He told her on a Thursday evening. The children were in bed. The house was in the particular quiet of after dinner, after bath time, after stories, after the last glass of water that Tom required with the conviction of someone managing a genuine emergency. Sarah was in the kitchen, sitting with her tea and the accounts book she kept, the careful record of a woman managing everything precisely. He sat down across from her. I want to talk about the arrangement, he said. She looked up. The composure came back, the professional distance, the careful posture. Of course, if there's something that isn't working, everything is working, he said. That's what I want to talk about. She waited. You mentioned saving to find your own place, he said. Daniel told you, she said. Single quotes, yes. She looked at her tea. I don't want you to think we're expecting to stay indefinitely. The arrangement was meant to be, Sarah, he said. She stopped. I would like you to stay, he said. Not as staff, not as a temporary arrangement. I would like, he paused. I have $14 billion and a house that had nobody in it for 3 years. And in 8 weeks your children have put drawings on my refrigerator and called me Nate and counted how many times I've eaten dinner with them. She was very still. I had always said I didn't want a family, he said. I said it enough times that I believed it. He looked at her. I was wrong. Nathan, I'm not asking for anything you don't want to give, he said. I'm telling you that you don't have to save to leave. You don't have to plan for somewhere else. You and your children are welcome here for as long as you want to be here. She stopped. That's a very significant thing to offer. I know, he said. I mean it. She looked at him, at the man who had opened his door to 3 wet children and a rain-soaked woman, and had left his study door open and learned to make tea correctly, and let Tom call him Nate. Why? She said. Because, he said, Daniel counted 14 dinners, and I didn't notice I was counting too. She held his gaze. How many? She said. 14, he said. And I didn't miss a single one on purpose. She looked at the accounts book. Then she closed it. I'll think about it, she said. Take the time you need, he said. Nathan, she said. Yes. Thank you, she said, for the door, leaving it open. It was easier, he said. Then keeping it closed, she told him on a Saturday morning. She found him in the garden, which she had started using. Another thing that had changed. The garden that had been maintained and unused now used. because Tom had discovered it and required supervision, and Nathan had discovered that supervising Tom in the garden was not a task he wanted to delegate. Tom was currently examining a beetle with the comprehensive focus of a scientist. He's going to try to bring it inside, Sarah said, standing beside Nathan. I know, Nathan said. I've prepared a position on that. What's your position? Firm but sympathetic, he said. The beetle lives outside. He'll cry, she said. I know, he said. I'll manage. She looked at him, at the man who had prepared a position on beetle relocation, and was standing in his garden on a Saturday morning watching a 2-year-old with the patient attention of someone who had nowhere more important to be. We'll stay, she said. He looked at her. Not because of the house, she said. Not because of the money, because, she paused. Daniel is happy here. Emma has stopped waking up at night. And Tom has a beetle, Nathan said. Tom has a beetle, she confirmed. And a garden. And someone who has prepared a position on where the beetle lives. She looked at the garden. James would have liked you, she said. He liked people who took the small things seriously. The small things, Nathan said, are usually the important ones. Yes, she said. They are. Tom looked up from the beetle and held it up for Nathan's inspection with the expression of someone sharing something precious. Nate, he said. I see it, Nathan said. It's a good one. Tom looked at the beetle with satisfaction and returned to his examination. Sarah looked at the garden, at the children who were beginning to appear. Emma coming through the back door with a book, Daniel behind her, and at the house behind them with the drawings on the refrigerator, and the shoes in the hallway, and all the small evidence of a life being built in a space that had been empty too long. Nathan, she said, single quotes, yes. You were wrong, she said. About not wanting a family. He looked at Tom and the beetle and Emma settling on the garden bench and Daniel already negotiating for the beetle's indoor future. I know, he said. I worked that out. When? Tuesday, he said. The first one. When you said he was very thoughtful for two. She almost laughed. That was the first day, she said. I know, he said. I told you I was wrong. 1 year later, on a Saturday morning, Nathan Cole woke up to noise. Not the silence of a house with one person in it. Not the managed quiet of staff moving carefully around a man who preferred not to be disturbed. The particular noise of a house that was full. Tom's voice from the kitchen, Emma's from the garden, Daniel's from somewhere on the stairs, Sarah's underneath all of it, steady and warm. He lay there for a moment and listened. $14 billion had not done this. 5 houses had not done this. "30 years of building something that the financial press called an empire had not produced a single morning that sounded like this one. He got up. He went downstairs. Tom was in the kitchen with the beetle. A different beetle, probably. Though Tom maintained it was the same one, and Nathan had decided not to challenge this. Emma was at the table with a drawing she was presenting to Sarah for assessment. Daniel was on the stairs with a book, which was where Daniel was most mornings. Sarah looked up when Nathan came in. She had been here a year, and she still looked at him when he came into a room, not with the professional attention of a housekeeper, not with the careful assessment of the woman on the doorstep in the rain. With the look of someone who was glad he was there. He had learned, over the year, to look back the same way. "Coffee?" she said. "Please," he said. "Nate," Tom said, holding up the beetle. "Good morning," Nathan said to the beetle. "It can't hear you," Emma said. "You don't know that," Nathan said. Emma considered this seriously. "That's true," she said. "I'll add it to my research." "Emma is researching beetles now," Sarah said, handing him his coffee. "Since when?" "Since Tom started keeping one," Sarah said. She decided if it was going to live here, it should be understood. "That's very thorough," Nathan said. "She gets it from her mother," Daniel said, from the stairs, without looking up from his book. Nathan looked at Sarah. Sarah looked at Nathan. "He notices everything," she said. "He gets it from his father," Nathan said. She held his gaze, warm and steady and completely present, and he thought about a Tuesday morning, and a knock on a door, and 3 children in the rain holding onto each other, and about the particular grace of doors opened at the right moment to the right people, and about how $14 billion had never once produced a Saturday morning. "That sounded like this one." "Nathan," Emma said, single quotes, "yes. The beetle needs a name," she said. "We've been calling it the beetle for a year." "That's not a name. What do you suggest?" She considered with the seriousness of someone naming something important. "James," she said. The kitchen was very quiet for a moment. Sarah looked at her daughter. "After Dad," Emma said simply. "He would have liked the beetle." "He would have," Sarah said. Her voice was steady. Her eyes were bright. "James it is," Nathan said. Tom held up the beetle. "James," he said, with satisfaction. And in the kitchen of a house that had been empty too long, on a Saturday morning full of the right kind of noise, a man who had always said he didn't want a family drank his coffee, and watched his family name a beetle after a good man who had been loved and understood, completely and without reservation, that he had been wrong about what he wanted for his entire adult life, and that being wrong had been the best thing that ever happened to him.